Are you challenged with celiac disease? Are you fed up of it controlling your life and only understanding small aspects of this life-changing condition? What if I told you that there's a lot more behind celiac disease than just food intolerance? Hi, my name is Evette Rose, author and founder of Metaphysical Anatomy, a book of 679 medical ailments and also the hidden emotional messages behind them that we all share universally. And welcome to today's topic, which is the emotional stress contributing to celiac disease, which is also one of the many ailments that's in this book that you can find out so much more about. So let's start first of all with what is celiac disease according to researchers? Now, this is an autoimmune disease in which gluten in your diet triggers your white blood cells to attack the tiny little finger-like proportions or projections that is in the lining of your small intestines. And these guys normally help you to digest your food. Now, this lining starts to become eroded until it's basically like worn out. And symptoms here could include, say, diarrhea, bloating, inflammation in the intestinal tract, gas and fatigue, weight loss, iron deficiency, anemia, constipation, and depression, right? Because of and depression here in this case as well, because of the strong link between the vagus nerve combined with the sensory nerves communicating information back and forth in the body to the brain, especially from the gut. So this nerve here in this case plays a very important role as a communicator and also a connector between your brain and your gut microbiome. So here's what's very important to start to observe within yourself. If your emotions change, so does your gut flora. Because your gut flora changes, so does your emotional state, which in this case now leads to depression because you don't have all the proper nutrients being absorbed to support a healthy gut and, of course, a healthy mindset. Now, gluten has been around for thousands of years, so the odds of this condition actually being an inherited condition is also very likely. Now, this means that your family DNA lineage holds a strong memory and also a sensitive predisposition towards gluten. And now you also develop this allergy due to perhaps some type of trigger in your life, which does not necessarily mean that it started first with gluten. Here's the important part. It could also have started with strong predispositioned emotional reactions to your environment that is shared with the ancestors who also suffered celiac disease. Let me explain. In your ancestry, gluten have been a big part of the staple food, right? Your ancestors could have gone through also very traumatic times such as slavery, poverty, and even war trauma. Now, when you look at those times, right, produce with gluten in it was always available. And when you look at emotional severe stress in cases that they probably could have lived through, right, surviving all this stress, their bodies would have been in a tremendously heightened state of distress. Now, regardless of what the source of the stress was, the body was left in fight or flight state and also very oversensitive and overly alert to everything in their environment. So here you have heightened emotions that are being felt as well, right? It's not just fight or flight. Once that fight or flight shock starts to wear off, that's when the emotional impact of what we've been through really hits. So when you feel so much emotional stress, right, and most of the time all that you have access to is produce with gluten in it, then the body starts to form a very negative association with the produce that has the gluten in it. Because every time that this produce, this gluten is consumed, your ancestors could have been very stressed, right? And now what happens is that the body starts to associate the produce that's with the gluten in it with the emotional strain and the stress and also the fight or flight state, causing the body to overreact, triggering a defense mechanism in itself, right? It wants then to defend itself from this threatened biological memory that was triggered, because it also triggers the gluten that was in the body that's now combined with all these negative messages. So it sets the body, the emotional body as well, in a state of fight or flight. Now, you are not necessarily aware of this, but the fact that the body is reacting the way that it is, which means that it's overreacting, it's feeling invaded, there's a sense of mistrust, right? It doesn't like the proteins in the gluten that's coming into the body. So in short, what's basically happening is that the body's creating an antibody response to it, because the body's trying to fight a subconscious traumatic memory that was formed and also associated with the produce with gluten in it. So you see, it's not always the produce with the gluten in it that's the starting point of the problem here. It could also be negative biological and psychological memories that your body made, with it combined with an overreactive immune system. Now, even if you only develop this later in your life, this is still applicable because you still had a stronger predisposition for a potential allergic response than someone who didn't have a strong ancestral predisposition for it, because there is a strong relationship between emotional stress along with how your body reacts as a result of your emotional stress, and then also how it connects and becomes associated with a memory and with a substance that is then locked into the biological body and the memory of that. In this case, it's gluten. So now let's move on to the emotional body and also psychological programming that takes place early in your life that is connected to celiac disease. Because as you know by now, there is a very strong relationship between emotional stress and also how it connects to and becomes associated with the memory in the body. So here now, let's look at what's the most obvious biological reaction and then dissect it further from there. So when you consume gluten, your body overreacts to the protein and the gluten, and also the proteins that actually now is damaging the wall in the lining of your small intestine, which looks like almost like small little finger-like shaped little projections. And these little guys are becoming damaged. So your small intestine cannot absorb nutrients from your food. So firstly, protein psychosomatically translates to love, right? Receiving love. And the villi, which is all the smaller finger-like shaped little projections that's on the lining of the small intestines, they receive the nutrients from your food. However, the proteins that's now found in the gluten, it disrupts this process. So your small intestines now represent your dynamic with your family. Normally with celiac disease, from what I've learned, is your mother or your father. The most dominant cases so far has been with the female figure. So a female caretaker or the mother. So here now, when you look at the bigger scope and also the picture of how this psychosomatically translates into a projection of what I, for example, would explain very accurately, is that the emotional root causes would be, right? So now here, you're also looking at the mother figure, right? You're looking at the father figure. They could have been emotionally or mentally or physically abusive towards a person. Right? If it was not, for example, now a parental figure, then it could be someone who had a very similar role as such as a caretaker. And here in this case now, if it's you that's struggling with celiac, you might also have patterns where you need love and attention, and that need was met by hostile or even abusive reactions. Now, let's face it, right? We all need love. We all need attention. Now here, if that need is met by unhealthy and even toxic behaviors, then we start to form associations with that. Love equals abuse. Love equals hostility. Love equals feeling unsafe. And the list can go on. So when you are feeling these emotions, those emotions now are meant to give you healthy love. I mean, who wakes up every morning thinking that I'm going to attract as much abuse and turmoil as I possibly can? We don't do that. It's a subconscious incorrect programming that's taken place. Now what happens is every time when that positive need, which is love, is met with a negative association, right? Meaning the negative reaction such as rejection or abandonment, because that is what you basically expect and that is what you become in alignment with. It creates almost a stress response in your body. And in most cases, even the fight or flight response, because you don't feel safe with this person or people or circumstances. So what happens now is that over time, you can start to associate love with the fight or flight response. And instead of receiving it, you'll have the subconscious need to protect yourself from it. And within that statement, I also hear challenging, if not future failed relationships, because these traumatic and negative memories will be programmed into your mind, your body, and your emotional body. So you see, when you need love, your subconscious mind now expects a very negative reaction. For example, now here, as I mentioned earlier, it could have been abuse, it could have been feeling attacked, rejected, and the list can go on. And this subconscious projection is set out through your electromagnetic field, holding these negative thoughts and also these expectations. Now, that is also how you become a frequency match for people who will make you then feel abused and feel attacked or rejected when all that you actually really want is just love. So you see how your history can follow you throughout your life. However, this is also just a program pattern, and you can already greatly improve your quality of life by breaking these toxic emotional cycles by just having awareness of that. Now, if you are challenged with this condition, then you probably also have experienced chronic fatigue and adrenal problems. And if so, then I would highly recommend that you also tune into my talk about chronic fatigue syndrome, as your circumstances also almost seems to leave you feeling like you are mentally and emotionally and even physically exhausted and angry. Now, your anger here also stems from boundary failures and feeling completely disregarded and disrespected. Now, this is also the case because you were probably often punished or even ridiculed when you expressed your needs or your boundaries in the past, causing you now to perhaps develop poor personal boundaries. Now, there also seems to be a great deal of emotional and physical and even sexual abuse trauma in your DNA lineage, and also strong aspects of these suppressed memories from your ancestors were now triggered due to your childhood circumstances, which now, here in this case, matched certain past events in your DNA lineage. Now, even though these are just suppressed memories, when they are activated, your body can start to react as if though these memories actually happened to you. So ultimately, when you look at the bigger scope of this, and then the main emotional theme that runs through this condition, that for example is, love is not safe. What is supposed to nurture me is not safe. And therefore, you end up emotionally and mentally and even physically reject vital needs, right? Vital needs that you need in your life in order to emotionally and physically grow and survive. So guys, here I also have a wonderful, powerful online healing course for this condition on my premium site at evetterosepremium.com. And there I will go into a lot more deeper detail with each symptom of celiac disease and also the psychological stress associated with it, along as so many other more content and also healing sessions to help you to start to improve your quality of life. So guys, keep asking these great questions, and until next time, be the light that you are. Hi guys, thank you for joining me, and remember to grab your copy of Metaphysical Anatomy on Amazon, 679 medical ailments. And I also wrote about the psychosomatic root causes of that, and I'm spoiling you because I even added key points for you to start looking at important questions that you can ask yourself to start improving your quality of life. And also remember to catch me on Instagram, Evette Rose, 1 with the digit 1, and Metaphysical Anatomy on our Facebook fan page. Bye guys!